for the last few years. And Oakley, they're really building themselves up to be a lot better as well. But we're we're about to do our playoff game predictions, and since we were just talking about Oakley and Barstow, this one's definitely gonna be like I told you. This one was like probably the most talked about game all year, like between the two best teams really in the region right now. And for this game, I actually gonna pick Barstow by 7 over Oakley's.
This game was definitely hyped up all off season, and when the game finally happened the first time, it delivered on every bit of the hype that it's been getting, and I expect that hype to be tenfold for the playoff game. But it's hard to pick against Bartram, especially at home, so I like Bartram to win a close one here as well.
All right, the next one, like we were just talking about earlier, Flagler Palm Coast travels to Sandalwood. That will be a big game as well. I know Sandalwood's playing 2 games. They are playing 2 playoff games this week. They just beat their rival Mandarin on Monday, which the game was supposed to be on Friday, but it got moved to Monday for some reason. I did not know the reason. And then, Flagler's playing their first game in like 2 weeks. So it should be interesting to see how that folds, because I believe both teams, especially since FPC's traveling for like over an hour just to get to Sandalwood, we'll see how tired these teams are. It's about who's hungry and who's really gonna win till the end. It's definitely gonna be a dogfight. And this one, I actually got Sandalwood by 10 over Flagler Palm Coast.
Saints, y'all better not let me down. I'll giving Sandalwood the win here.
The next one we have, and also we're in 8A, Spruce Creek at Westport, which is in Ocala. And I haven't talked about much of these teams this year at all, both of these teams. And Spruce Creek's been pretty strong in the last few years. I know the Volusia County, they've had short schedules this year. And Westport, they used to have had a rough football team for so many years. And even for the whole playoff system this year, Westport actually had a pretty solid schedule. I think they had a few games. I think they won the majority of their games. I think they only lost 2 games this year, I believe. I would have to check my stats real quick. But Westport seemed very impressive. They finished 4-2. Yeah, 4-2. I'm actually going to go with Spruce Creek by 14 over Westport.
You're right on that. Their losses, they've come to very good teams with Vanguard and Dunellen, both of them pretty much blowing Westport out. Westport does have the win over North Marion this year, and they won in overtime over a solid Force team. They're definitely much better than I expected. In fact, I think they lost one of their best players star-wise, which was a 3-star defensive back to Forrest during the offseason. I didn't think there was going to be much there for Westport, but they surprised me. But in this game, I'm definitely going to take Spruce Creek to win it.
And then our last one to mention for 8A, Sanford Seminole travels to DeLand. And this one's like a cross-county or like county border rivalry. Because Sanford is not far from the Seminole-Volusia County border, and neither is DeLand. And I believe these two teams play each other every year. And DeLand has been looking really tough the last few years, and Seminole's I think they've been considered a powerhouse in the state over the last decade, maybe. They've always been good. This one, I'm going to take Seminole by 3.
Yeah. I definitely think this one's going to be a very competitive game for the most part. And as for the thing, I think that they were supposed to play in that game ended up getting canceled or something. But yeah, Seminoles definitely got some serious talent. And from people I've talked to, they could potentially be a threat to win the North in 8A. DeLand, I like the fact they stepped up a bit on their schedule, especially by picking up St. Thomas Aquinas in the regular season. You never really see teams up here playing Aquinas. That's why I was so impressed when Mandarin did last year. but I'm gonna go with the Seminole by I'll go by 10.
All right, on to 7A. Lincoln at Atlantic Coast. This one I know most people have picked Lincoln as the favorite because Lincoln's been a powerhouse for years too. But Atlantic Coast impressed me like a lot last Friday. And I wasn't there for the game, but they beat Fletcher by over 20 points, which was insane because Fletcher was a team that was looking pretty good this year. They only lost I think they only lost one game earlier this year. And Atlantic Coast, I didn't even have them ranked at all because I knew they were looking better as a team, but they still just had some of those struggles. But I could tell you this, though, Atlantic Coast has improved a lot. And I know that coaching staff's been working very hard, but people are going to call me crazy, but I got Atlantic Coast winning by 14 as an upset.
Yikes. I never heard of an upset that picked by 14, but ain't that kind of close to the margin they won by last week?
I think it was a little more than 14, but, and like I was saying, my reason is Lincoln, they've had a shorter schedule and they're tough, but I think Atlantic Coast would really pull off the upset on this one. They've been very impressive this season despite what their record says. And this team could have potential to be even better next year, and that's why I'm thinking. That's why I think Atlantic Coast will win by 14. I think they'll open some eyes in this playoffs.
I definitely think that Atlantic Coast definitely showed that they could be a program on the rise last week with that win over Fletcher. I think the one thing that might work against them that really, when it came to the Fletcher matchup, they were pretty much even on, which was playoff experience. Fletcher had I believe their players on their roster had played one playoff game, especially when you talk about the senior class, in their entire 4 years. Lincoln has consistently been in the playoffs. I think they're going to be a little bit more ready for the bright lights when it comes to this game. So I got Lincoln in a 7-point win.
Okay. Another one in 7A is Fleming Island and Childs. Fleming Island's got to take the long drive out to Childs. But this one, I don't really have much to say because I have a pretty good guess on who's going to win. I've got Fleming Island by 21.
Yeah, I agree with Fleming Island taking this win. Childs, they've been a decent program over the last few years. I just don't know I don't think they're going to be necessarily ready for Fleming Island. So, yeah, I'll take Fleming Island here. Here's another one. Buchholz at Navarre. This one definitely is going to get some attention, especially considering that for the second time this season, Buchholz blew out Creekside last week. But now they got to go face an undefeated team out in the Panhandle, which, if you're looking historically from North Central to Northeast Florida, the teams that go out in the Panhandle, it rarely goes well for the team traveling out there. And that's exactly why I'm going to take Navarre to end the hot streak of Buchholz and stop them cold by 14.
Yeah, this one, I think it'll be a nice matchup. And, Buchholz, they're pretty competitive every year, but I don't think it's going to be a good trip for Buchholz. I got Navarre by 14 as well. On to 6A now, we got Robert E. Lee at Pace. This one I think will be very interesting, and usually I never talk about Pace or some of those teams on the Panhandle. But Lee, for having to be a younger team this year, they've actually been pretty impressive this year, I must say. And I think that will be an interesting matchup. I'm going to just go with and say I got Lee by 7 over Pace.
I can understand what you mean by Pace because generally we never really see Pace facing teams from this part of the state. And even though this is going to be obviously a 10-hour round trip between there and back for Lee out to Pace, I just still feel like that Pace is going to be able to put up many points on Lee's defense. I got the opportunity to see Lee this year, and even though I feel like their offense is not really as impressive as some people are trying to make them out to be, one thing I will not deny is that defense is a very strong defense. I don't know if Pace will even they may not even get on the board against Lee. I'll take Lee by 14.
Oh, right. Yeah, that should. Hey, man, like I was saying, Lee's just. I feel like they will just be the better team despite that long trip. Another one. This one's probably the biggest one, probably in the all of 6A. Escambia and St. Augustine, two powerhouse teams for God, I don't know how long. They've been powerhouses forever. This should be a very, very interesting game. I think this will probably be the best playoff game in all of the 904, 386, all of the North Florida, man. Probably even bigger than South Florida. I mean, I can't stress how big of a deal this game is because these two teams are amazing. This one's gonna be a very tough pick for me because both of them are strong. St. Augustine had a rough season like 2 years ago, and they're coming back to being really good. And Escambia, they're very powerful. They're a powerful team. I'm actually going to go with St. Augustine to win by 10 because Escambia, they're probably tired from that long trip. And I think St. Augustine will come out strong. And Escambia just will be a little bit too tired just to compete with them.
I always, when I look at situations like this, I can remember the phrase, to be the man, you got to beat the man. Escambia is
Ric Flair.
Yes, exactly. Escambia, the defending 6A North champions, it's going to take a lot to knock that team off. And I think St. Augustine is definitely looking good. They'll probably put up a heck of a fight. But but the Gators of Escambia, I got them here. I don't think they're going to be fazed by this road trip at all. I'm going to say Escambia by 7.
All right, I can see that. This one, Seabreeze travels to Columbia. Seabreeze has improved because I know they've had some rough years. But I think when they travel to Columbia, I think this one's not going to be that good of a game. I got Columbia by 21.
The thing that I've noticed with Columbia over the past few weeks, obviously with the emergence of Marcus Peterson from switching him from receiver to quarterback, and speaking of which, earlier today he picked up an offer from the University of Maryland, and it's impressive considering not only has he never played quarterback prior to that North Miami Beach game, he hadn't played football from middle school or high school until this season. This is literally going to be his 4th game playing quarterback, and the ceiling is so high because he's such a good athlete. And then you look at guys on the outside like Trey Tolliver, for example. That dude is probably one of the most talented receivers I've ever seen at the high school level, especially as a sophomore. I'm impressed from what I've been seeing. And I believe they actually are going to get a couple players back this week that have been out since the North Miami Beach game. And from what I've seen with the defense at Columbia, they've stepped up tremendously the last 2 games, pitching back-to-back shutouts. Because you got to remember the Inglewood game, they did get a shutout. The Inglewood's lone score came on a kickoff return, which would not count on the defensive side of the ball. When it comes to Seabreeze, I think they're a decent team, but I don't see anything there that's going to make them an offensive threat any bigger than the teams we just played already. I would not be surprised if Columbia gets another shutout. I'm going to say Columbia by 17 here.
All right. And the other game for 6A, the battle between Pirates and Buccaneers, Mainland goes to Matanzas. And Matanzas, they also won their first playoff game ever in school history. So they're the 3rd team in just this area, the whole 904-386 area who has done that. So props to them. Congratulations to them. But this one should be interesting. I mean, I know Mainland had a short schedule this year as well. But I think the Buccaneers will be pretty strong against Matanzas. I got Mainland by 14.
I was a little bit concerned from how Mainland played against Gainesville last week, but then again, I can say the same thing about Matanzas getting by a single point over New Smyrna Beach, who's basically struggled all year. But obviously, Mainland, they got the playoff experience here. It's hard to pick against them. And they've already beaten Matanzas this season, so I'll say Mainland